Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time. I guess it's technically almost any time, about 2 minutes shy of any time with Buck Rising. But either way, we're here, the last show before the last preseason game. We are on the finish line, or we are on the precipice of the finish line. I suppose that's the home stretch, if we're to use sports parlance. But we are almost there. We are mere days away from the NFL season, regular season, getting underway. We have a preseason game on tonight, a particularly stinky game between the Carolina Panthers and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But with the Titans at Nissan Stadium tomorrow night, with Cameron Ward's final preseason reps, and then just a few weeks of practice to go before we all ship off together for Denver, Colorado, and week one, a date with the Broncos, the playoff team from 2024, with a player at quarterback that would have been the offensive rookie of the year had Jaden Daniels not had the best rookie quarterback season I think I've ever seen. So we are going to talk about where Cameron Ward has improved and how he's showing progress, even in failure, with a couple of different clips from Greg Cosell. Now, you know that we do the weekly podcast with Cosell. We did it this morning. It's available in its entirety on YouTube, the 1045 The Zone YouTube channel, where you can find the install with Greg Cosell every Thursday morning. Robert gets it up typically between 10 and 11 a.m. on a regular basis. And obviously, through the preseason, we don't do preseason like tape because there's not scheme to analyze for Greg. But what we do is we take a look at players. We take a look at players who are ascending, players who are displaying technique, where they are improving, and Greg applies his film critical eye to some of the basic concepts that the offenses are trying to execute and how he sees Cameron Ward, for example, or Alec Iamaner or Chimere Dike or Gunnar Helm working within those basic concepts. So while there are not tactical advantages to be determined there are a variety of different things that you can pull from. All right, I didn't see him doing it this in preseason week one, but here's what he showed in preseason week two. So we'll get to a couple of Cosell clips to that effect later on in the broadcast. We got weekend bounce back as well because it's a Thursday night before we put a bow on our primetime week. Share the broadcast around on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, wherever you are spending your precious and valuable time with us. We do appreciate when you share the show. Twitter, retweet it in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. If you're on Facebook Live, you can share. You can share now to public. That's in the bottom left. And if you're on YouTube or Twitch, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell a friend to do the same. Even text them a link if you're feeling frisky, and we will invite as many of you as want to hang out and talk about Cameron Ward's progress as are interested in doing just that. I'm sure those of you who are local will be excited for your first chance to see him in a Titans uniform. I think they're wearing the Columbia blue uniform, the Columbia blue tops with the white pants. I think I saw in Jimmy Wyatt's uniform, Britches report, rather. So that is going to be something for home fans to see him for the first time in full uniform, going through the process of at least two series, probably no more than two series, in a preseason game, the final preseason game at Nissan Stadium, before we have a couple of weeks until they come back home in week two for the home opener in the regular season against the LA Rams. So let's go ahead and get things started, and we'll talk a little Cameron Ward and his progress tonight. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time on this Thursday, August the 21st. I'm your host, Buck Rising, and I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by TrueMath Fitness. It's been about 3 weeks, almost a month, since I've been able to go to TrueMath Fitness and get my workout in, just because we've been on the road. But tomorrow morning, I'm excited. Arm Farm Friday with Worth Campbell and the crew. That is a great way to get game day going, great way to start the day off on a right note, whether it's group fitness classes that they offer, personal training like I do, or any number of membership options for you to work out as you please in their top-of-line facility downtown Nashville in the Gulch. Go to TrueMathFitness.com. Your first workout is free. And at Two Rivers Ford, I will also be at Two Rivers Ford tomorrow morning because we are doing a Cameron Ward jersey giveaway. In fact, I've got it here on my desk with Two Rivers Ford. Keep an eye out on Two Rivers social channels. I want to make sure that can, well, I'm not sure how to keep it from blurring, half blurring like my background is. Maybe I put it in front of me. Either way, this is a Cameron Ward Titans jersey that we are giving away, courtesy of Two Rivers Ford. It arrived in the mail. Looks like it's been, yeah. And so it's the uniform that they're wearing tomorrow. As a matter of fact, this is the color of the uniform. I guess this is the new home uniform, the home primary uniform. Either way, Two Rivers Ford, Titans jersey giveaway. Cameron Ward jersey is what's on offer. Tell you more information about how you can win that jersey and the social media posts that you need to be paying attention to tomorrow that will feature both a Ford Bronco, as you see there on the Two Rivers Ford graphic, and this beautiful Columbia blue Cameron Ward Titans jersey. So keep an eye out on A to Z Sports' social media channel. Bork says, Buck, are you going to wear it first to diminish its value? No, you know I would never put on a Titans jersey. They're not that, and that's, no disrespect to Cameron Ward or any other great players whose jersey that have or who have come through this franchise, but I don't do fan things, so no thank you. Although I guess the Titans gave me an Oilers jersey somewhere in the office. They gave me an Oilers jersey when they brought back the Oilers throwbacks a couple of years ago. I guess it would have been 23. And I did wear that once for Halloween because if you'll remember, if you watched the radio show, that was at the time where they were terrible last season. So I put on my Oilers jersey and I put a Trader Joe's grocery bag over my head and I wrote collaboration across the top of it. That is the one time that I've worn Titans gear. So I can't, not totally honest if I say I've never worn a piece of Titans paraphernalia, but only to make fun of them for how bad they were last year. So that was my Halloween costume. Sad Titans fan with a bag over my head and collaboration written across the forehead of the bag. Anyway, not that it's not cool for you guys, but not for me. No, thank you. Anyway, let's, Zach Lawrence says, of course, only wear it to talk shit. That's right. That is correct. Anyway, so with all of the different things that we have to watch in the preseason game, guys trying to make the roster, but we can do a roster show when we have a roster in hand. Tuesday, we will have a roster in hand. So I don't really feel it necessary to go through who do we think is going to get cut? Who are your guesses on who's going to get cut? Give a shit. They probably know who's going to be the bulk of the 53. They probably have 50 of the 53 figured out tonight, right, prior to the preseason game taking place. And I don't really think there's going to be much movement as far as who can actually earn themselves a job and even just earn themselves an initial spot versus a long-term spot, because it's really about who's on the 48 that would be applicable for game day as opposed to the 53, where that still kind of leaves you open to day by day or week by week transactions, practice squad call-ups, guys getting dropped off the active roster, waived for a particular reason or another. And so, the 53 roster guesses, I don't think it's worth doing. I think it's pretty well chalk at this point because they don't have many players or many positions to kind of make tough decisions at, if you know what I mean. So let's focus instead on the quarterback and let's focus instead on the progress that he is making. I think for Cameron Ward, there's been a couple of things that you like. Now, he's played 5 offensive series in 2 preseason games. He has put together 2 drives of consequence, one that resulted in a touchdown by Tony Pollard, one that was cut short because of the Van Jefferson drop, and 3 and outs across those 2 preseason games. Now, he played less offensive snaps in Atlanta in preseason week 2, than he did in Tampa Bay. 14 in Tampa Bay, technically 12 in Atlanta. 1 was a penalty, so we don't necessarily count it. So really, he played 11 snaps, actual offensive snaps in Tampa Bay, according to your game book. So what can we learn about the Titans quarterback, having only played 25 almost professional football snaps, because it is still preseason, of course. And as you look at the kind of progress that he's making, we talked a little bit about what we're seeing from him with Greg Cosell this morning. And I think the insight, even on the incompletions, on what Cameron Ward is doing well specifically, I think you're going to enjoy listening to Cosell break down first this Van Jefferson drop on the first drive of the second preseason game.
Clay, that was a very similar concept to the Ridley 27-yard play in the first game. it was double post to the field, and this time Jefferson was the boundary X, and he ran the backside deep crosser. Um, to me, what was more important about that throw, and one can debate whether it should have been caught or should not have been caught. That's kind of irrelevant, really. But I just thought that the timing and anticipation was really good by Ward because one thing when I watch the tape and I have my clicker, I can freeze it as he's literally as he separates his hands to throw the ball. And that was an NFL throw, a big time NFL throw, because when he started his delivery, he had to throw it essentially to air. He had to take Jefferson across the field. Um, and there are a lot of quarterbacks, particularly college quarterbacks, young quarterbacks, who don't see those kinds of throws, Buck, as viable throws because the receiver's not open. He's probably 15, 18 yards from where he's going to be when the ball would get to that spot. So, those are the kinds of things I look at. I thought that was impressive. Like I said, we can debate should he caught it, should he not caught it. And I bet that's not even relevant to the coaching staff, as far as Cam, because that's the play. It's double post with a deep crosser or deep over, whatever they want to call it. And he threw it without any hesitation. And I think the other thing that was good about that play is the pass protection was really good. So we've gotten used to seeing in the preseason, at least with the first unit, that there have been a number of plays where the pass protection's been good.
It's you almost have to like rub your eyes to make sure that you're actually seeing what you think you're seeing and understanding they're not having to pick up a bunch of blitzes or facing a bunch of different games up front from the defenses. They will week one in Denver, as we well know. But to your point, first with Cam, I think that Greg, I really liked. And I don't know that this is a terribly technical term, but I follow enough people like Dan Orlovsky and Chase Daniel on Twitter, former quarterbacks who will break some of this down beyond just yourself and breakdowns that I'm interested in kind of looking through. And I liked the way that Chase Daniel described it as arm arrogance in that
Yes.
particular throw.
Yes, yeah. And one of the things, with Cam, this is something that I look for when I watch college quarterbacks, and obviously I did with him, he can play off his back foot. And you have to be able to do that, in my view. I mean, not every quarterback can. It doesn't mean you can't run an offense, but throws like that, they're sort of back foot throws. It doesn't mean you're not transferring your weight, but he can play off his back foot and drive the ball with velocity. He does not need a lot of space to make throws. He's what we call a rotational thrower. He doesn't need to step necessarily. You want him to do this, but he doesn't always need to step with perfect lower body to the throw. You work on that. You want that to happen all the time, but he can play off his back foot and make those kinds of throws.
So that's Greg Cosell on this morning's episode of The Install. And you'll hear from Greg again on another drop that Chimere DK had on 3rd and 13. I think that was the second drive, if I'm not mistaken. One of the 3-and-out drives that Cameron Ward and the Titans offense got in Atlanta. But you see the kind of detail that Greg is looking at Cameron Ward first and foremost with. So even though the play is not a successful play, well, in preseason, I mean, yes, would you like every play to be successful? Of course you would. But there are still things to be learned on a play that is not technically successful. And you see the kind of detail that Greg goes into, or you hear the kind of detail that Greg goes into on why that's a good Cameron Ward play, even though it wasn't an outright successful play. And that's kind of where we are with your Two Rivers Ford take. Whereas Cameron Ward improved most since being drafted by the Titans, I would say that his isolation, his ability to isolate and eliminate is what we're seeing progress on. His ability to diagnose what he's seeing in front of him, just his decision-making in general, I think has been sound really the whole way through. There will be some mistakes. He will see greater degrees of difficulty once we actually get to games that are schemed and disguises and coverages and all manner of different things that defensive coordinators are doing to throw him off in particular. But right now, all he can do is compete against who's in front of him. And at this point, he's doing a pretty good job competing against who's in front of him. We'll see how much further he can elevate as we work our way through his rookie season. B. French asks, who I think has been the biggest surprise to you this preseason that will likely make the team? It's such a cop-out, but, like, I don't think I've been surprised by anybody. That's what I say. That's what I mean when I say, like, it feels pretty chalky. Everybody that you thought was gonna make the roster, maybe hmm, it's a good question, but there's not a name that immediately jumps into my mind on that. I guess a guy like Kendall Brooks, who's scrapping to be the fourth safety, who had the pick six on Friday night in Atlanta, who's made a couple of nice plays in those joint training camp practices, who has special teams value. I guess that's solid. Titans Kyle's Prochet, his ability as a wide receiver. Yeah, but Prochet, it's not because of the games. I guess maybe I took that question too literally, as opposed to saying training camp. Like, Prochet has been way better in training camp than he has in the games, actually. So I think that when you talk about guys that have surprised in preseason games specifically, like James Prochet is doing exactly what I expected James Prochet to do in the preseason. He's their best punt returner. So I'm not surprised by that. If he's going to make this roster because he's the best return man option that this roster has. So that was never in dispute. I think that I'd probably say Kendall Brooks if you made me, because I've never, I really had no consideration of Kendall Brooks prior to this season, and I noticed him on a handful of plays in joint training camp practice, and he's been able to take that over to the game. So that's probably the name that I would go with. But yeah, no, there's nothing surprising about Prochet. I think that Prochet is doing exactly what he was brought here to do, which is be the primary punt returner and be, at any given point, the fifth or sixth wide receiver. I think that's about what your level of expectation should be for him. Maybe it's a surprise to you, and that's fine because you guys don't get to see training camp practices, and I acknowledge that. But if you're talking specifically about games, probably Kendall Brooks is the name that I would submit. Nard says, not going to lie, I'm super sad Xavier Restrepo isn't going to make the roster. I mean, I guess, but if he can't help you, why are you sad? Like, he's a good story. There are plenty of good stories. Plenty of good stories about guys making the roster. This one just happens to have been the guy that most recently played college football with your quarterback. So I guess that's why you shouldn't get attached to these dudes for the sake of storyline before you really see them go out there and compete. I'm not bent out of shape about it. Listen, Xavier Restrepo is doing exactly what he needs to do. He is trying to keep his NFL dream alive. It's probably not going to happen on this initial roster. Okay. Doesn't mean that he can't get scooped up on the practice squad by another team and try to make it work elsewhere. And it may not work, right? Like, he's not a special player as a football player, right? First and foremost, there are great storylines every year. There are there are stories of guys who have overcome all manner of adversity and made it out of terrible circumstances in the hometowns that they're from, and all manner of different trials and tribulations that you can find anywhere on all 32 teams across the league. And a lot of those dudes get cut. It's not to say that it's that you don't wish the best for all of them. Of course you wish the best for all of them, unless they're douchebags or something like that. And there's really not that many players that I've covered that I would actively say that I disliked, or that, were not good people, just generally, that you wouldn't necessarily root for. I'd have a hard time coming up with a name of a guy that was just a real shitbag in the 10 years that I've covered. And I don't know that I would outright name names either way. There's one there, and he was only on the roster for a year, and it was at the very end of his career. So maybe just a crotchety Old man. You try not old man, but old man by football standards. Yeah, I probably wouldn't name names on that. I don't think that's unnecessary. Bork says Vic Beasley. No, Vic Beasley was a very nice man. I mean, he just showed up here to steal your money. I know no personal problem. No personal problem whatsoever with Vic Beasley. He now you guys are just guessing names. Cy Reacts says would rather have Restrepo than Prochet. Well, that's dumb. I mean, that's just objectively dumb. Because Prochet has value and Xavier Restrepo currently does not. Prochet is a plus on special teams. Xavier Restrepo is not. Prochet has been a more adept wide receiver at the professional level. Xavier Restrepo has not. So if you're doing that, it's an emotional decision. And that is why you should not bring emotion into the science of roster construction. And it doesn't mean that going by it or going about it in a completely cold, emotionless way is guaranteed for success each and every time. But yeah, if you're making a decision like that, you're either not paying attention or, frankly, and I don't want to make that an indictment of you, Cy, but like you guys don't get to see training camp practices. I've been at every training camp practice, every practice since we got back to work. What rookie mini camp was beginning of May. So I've been at practice every day since the beginning of May. And so I have better context for, yeah, that's not a plus. And so if you want to make your decisions emotionally that way, and you're entitled to your opinion, I suppose, but it's an incorrect opinion. And I think the vast majority of people who understand just how bad the special teams units have been around here would say that is incorrect because he adds more value at wide receiver than Prochet. That is, again, incorrect. Prochet has been a superior wide receiver. And he says we can have DK handle special teams. Yeah, you don't just need one guy. DK is going to be a kick returner, and a kick returner's job is very different from a punt returner's job. So again, there are details there. It is fine for you to have that opinion. I'm just giving you examples of why that is an incorrect opinion to have based on everything that's happened at practice since May. If you want to stand on that, you're entitled to do so. I'm just saying that's like, it could not be. You could not have less ground to stand on. You're making an incorrect argument based on either a lack of information or you just don't care about having the context of the information, and that's fine too, but you're just going to be wrong about it. Anyway, so with everything that you've got going on, with the progress that you're making, there's a lot of good things that you're seeing from Cameron Ward. You're going to get to see him primarily with the young guys here in the next preseason game, because if they do throw Calvin and Lockett out there, I would be kind of surprised. I don't really need to see them at this point. I don't think the coaching staff needs to see them at this point. So I would imagine it's a good opportunity to get Ward reps with younger dudes who he may not be seeing as often as he's seeing Lockett and Ridley. But speaking of reps with the younger dudes and speaking of Chimere Dike, here's an example of what Chimere Dike can't do yet as a wide receiver, but something that Cosell was able to identify. Okay, Cameron Ward made the right decision. DK is just not there to make the play at this stage of his development.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about that play, and obviously I looked at that multiple times. I mean, that's a very common play in the NFL. That was mirrored routes on each side, what we call a 7-step and a drag combination on each side. 7-stop drag combination on each side, and DK ran kind of the on the ball route in front of Ward. So teams, there's different philosophies with that route concept. Some teams want to work to the outside, either side of the mirrored routes. Other teams work the middle of the field, as the Titans did, because Cam threw it, he hit his back foot and threw it. So clearly his coverage read was DK in the middle. I thought he made the right throw. I thought he was decisive. I thought that DK slowed down, and this is a rookie receiver. I thought he slowed down rather than bending it inside to the soft spot in the zone. So I actually thought Cam made the right read and a good throw, and that's something that DK will learn, is when you run that route and you're getting behind a defender like that, you've got to bend that to get away from the defender, and he slowed down. Yeah. So it made it look like Cam forced to throw because the defender was there, and it made it look like, bad throw. That's my read of it. As I said, I could be wrong, but that was my read of it because I've seen that route combination 1,000 times.
No, and it's a good observation in particular, Greg, because I think it's important to remind people that they kept Ridley and Lockett out of this game because they want
Correct.
Cam to get additional reps with DK, with Iamaner, and there's a lot of new pieces and parts in that wide receiver room in particular. But the two fourth-round rookies, and then also Gunnar Helm, a fourth-round pick at tight end, who actually, at least he's still pretty raw as a player, Greg, but they're very excited about Helm. In particular, Chigakonkwo is the better tight end overall at this point in time for obvious reasons, but they feel really good about the progress that he's making as he continues to pick up like tools and tricks of that particular position.
Well, the main thing with him, and you knew this from watching his college tape, is, and I'm sure that they're working on this with him, is can he line up as an attached tight end and be a blocker? Because ultimately, if he's going to become the guy, who knows what their thought is with Chig down the road. I guess he's in his third year now.
No, this is his fourth.
Is this Chig's fourth year?
This is a contract year for Chig and Roger McCreary, that class.
Time flies, boy. So I guess, the issue becomes, can Gunnar Helm in their mind, and they can't answer that right now. They may have thoughts about it. They obviously do. They're with him every day. I'm not. But can he become a quote unquote number one tight end? We're not saying he's George Kittle, but can he become a number one tight end to be that guy? You're going to have to line up attached to a tackle and block, DNs or outside linebackers. And, you don't have to pancake them, but you got to block them in the run game. So I think that's probably the determining factor as to where they see him going, because he's a very good receiver.
Sorry, I was muted. That can count as our weekend bounce back too. Who needs to bounce back most in sports? I think the young pass catchers need to bounce back and give Cameron Ward more because he's making plays out there. They're not making plays for him yet. So that's it's good and it's bad because you've got a quarterback who's probably ahead of, if you were grading on a standard curve, he's probably slightly ahead of it right now, but you don't have the rest of the roster ready or equipped to make plays for him yet. He is making plays, but he can't throw and also catch his own receptions. I mean, I suppose Marcus Mariota did that one time, but you get my meaning. He can't do it all. That's impossible in professional football. But he can do enough to give these guys a chance. He is giving these players, these other skill players, whether it's Van Jefferson or Chimere DK, or Alec Eierman or Calvin Ridley, he's given them chances to make plays on the ball. So the weekend bounce back, who needs to bounce back most this weekend? We'll call it the young skill players because I think they've been fine. Like I'm not down on them by any stretch of the imagination. But it leaves something to be desired, and that is probably going to be a good portion of the Titans season. Like Cameron Ward is going to make some plays, and the roster around him is probably going to let him down a time or two. And he's a good teammate, and I don't think he's going to let that make him flinch. Anyway, TrueMath Fitness will make sure that you are on the right track as far as your fitness goals go. TrueMathFitness.com, personal training, group fitness classes, 7 days a week. Awesome facility, downtown Nashville in the Gulch. I'm going to be there tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. for a little Arm Farm Friday. I've missed it. I'm looking forward to it. I've been in hotel gyms for the past 2 weeks, and I'm sick of that shit. TrueMathFitness.com is where you go. They are so convinced that you will be hooked on their workout programming that they are offering you your first workout free. TrueMathFitness.com for more details. All right, so who needs to bounce back first in or over the course of this weekend? Skill players for the Titans, young skill players for the Titans could stand to do a little better than they did last week. Also, Jerry Jones. I mean, Jerry doesn't need to bounce back. He's running a 10. I think the Cowboys are valued at like 10 billion or something disgusting. Running a $10 billion franchise. He's got more money than God, and he's doesn't have to win anything to keep his team relevant because all he has to do is make media appearances. But like Jerry and the frequency of the media appearances, I don't think it's helping. It doesn't help you win games, and I think that's the thing that's at the crux of the Cowboys fan frustration is that Jerry does a lot of shit talking, and it doesn't help the franchise win games.
I have agreed to give more money than has ever been given in terms of guaranteed money. than anyone ever has as far as a defensive player. I've done that. Now, I am the cat that writes the check. Okay? Now, Mike has got 3 years with the Cowboys left. He's got 3 years. At some point, somebody has to have the say over the other. At some point, it has to be that way. My job is managing the check. Okay? Micah's got to do the playing. Where's the least important part of this whole equation we're talking about? What is the least incremental part of the whole equation? The attorney or the agent. Okay? He works for Micah. Okay? He's not the principal here in any way. In any way. They're in here to make their percentage. They're in here to basically, yes, advise Micah. Come over to the office and I'll show you exactly what I offered Micah. We got it in the back. It's with all written down, everything to go. Come down and look at that.
I would get over there and see that.
Okay. You can sure look at it. You can sure absolutely look at it. Here's my entire point. Entire point. Who is it that basically says this is ultimately recognizing we're trying to come together for an agreement, but absolutely, who is it that can go with it? And so the facts are, I don't know that I've ever been around. I've never tried to buy anything. I've never tried to do anything that I actually was going to bring all of the services and somebody else was going to do all the money. But because the in-between guy wasn't exactly the guy that I had fit there, that kept you from doing the deal.
Right.
That's exactly what's happening here. So many times in this industry, you have a different agenda going on with agents. A different agenda. They're playing a game. You tell me, are agents incentivized to not only get the most for that player, but they're trying to get what? They're trying to get other players because they got a high agenda for that player.
Right.
That's their incentive. Okay. Attorneys, exactly the very same way. And as you know, I do a lot of business. I do a lot of business straight with the principals, not with the attorneys. I do my time when the deal gets done face to face with the principal, not with the attorneys.
Right.
Not with the agents. So I'm just saying that nobody appreciates Michael Parsons any more than the Cowboys or me. Nobody. Nobody has ever offered him more money than I have to play football.
Right.
Period.
I mean, God knows he keeps it interesting, Jerry Jones, but somebody in the comment section I saw said they're playing chicken in real time. Yeah, Jerry thinks they're playing chicken with the train, and he's the train. So, I mean, I guess technically he is because he's got the bank account, but that's what it is for Cowboys fans, and that has to make you insane because you got an owner that doesn't talk at all, and Jerry does too much talking. Somewhere the middle ground, I'm sure, would be the preference as far as NFL ownership goes. It's going to do it for us tonight. Come hang out on the radio show tomorrow, 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone, the last Friday show without football. The last Friday show without football. Incredibly exciting. We are looking forward to getting into football season. It is week 0 in the college world. We will have NFL preseason come to an end this weekend, which we're very excited about. Coach Dave McGinnis is going to be on the radio show tomorrow. Holly Rowe will get the college football season started in week 1 with us. Next week, she's going to be on the show on Monday. The awesome ESPN sideline reporter, Holly Rowe, going to be on the show. We're going to have Josh Pate in studio. We got a lot of fun things planned for you here over the course of the next couple of weeks to get you ready for football season. We'll knock the preseason game out tomorrow, put a bow on the exhibitions, and keep this thing rolling for the 2025 season. Have a great rest of your evening. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.
There's a very low percentage of this